Record, guys.
No audio.
Welcome to English Without Borders. Good evening, dear everybody who are joining English Without Borders webinars from different countries and also from different parts of this world. So thank you for joining. And today we are very happy to host Dr. Alesa Durgaryan. And today she will talk about the role of feedback in EFL classes. Just to mention that Alesa is an honorary member of English Without Borders Network, and in addition, Alesa Durgaryan earned her Ph.D. at the Armenian State Pedagogical University after Abovyan. She got her MA in the field of psychology and foreign languages, and currently, Alesa Durgaryan is ESL teacher at Hrazdan Basic School number 11 after William Saroyan, and an ESL trainer at SKYENG, a lecturer at ELTA University in the Czech Republic. And Alesa Durgaryan has taken part in many different international conferences and projects as a speaker and EFL, ESL, and ESP trainer. She is also an author of many scientific articles in the field of teaching English as a second and foreign language and pedagogy. Alesa Durgaryan is a volunteer in different international projects and companies such as HETT, EduArmenia, ELTA University, and others. She is specialized and working on the problem of teacher training on the virtual platform and preparing a model of teacher training on the virtual platform. And this is the third time Alesa is doing her webinar with English Without Borders, and we are very happy to host her again. So dear participants, please get engaged actively in the webinar and ask your questions to our speaker after her presentation using the comment box and chat box. So we welcome all of you joining via Zoom and also on Facebook. So Alesa, welcome once again, and over to you. Thank you so much.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Really, thank you, first of all, for your invitation, and really, I'm honored to be here and to share my knowledge and also experience as a topic. As we have mentioned, today we are going to have a very good, and we can say that very interesting one, because feedback is a very important one. And I want to start with the words of Bill Gates. He said that we all need people who give us feedback because that's how we improve. If I can do something without getting any kind of feedback, without getting any kind of result, in order to compare, in order to make some kinds of changes, I think that it will be not usable and beneficial one for us. That's why it's very important to have people in our lives who can just give feedback to us. And today we will mainly focus on teaching, and also not only teaching, but at the same time, from some point, I will also talk about the learners' feedback, because as we know nowadays, education is improving, is just going to be more and more just specialized, a little bit modern one. That's why in some cases the rules or something that we have, for example, had many years ago, it's not the same one, because according to the new technologies, according to all the changes of the world, it also has changed the structure and also the peculiarities of education. And nowadays it's more preferable and more important to have an interactive education, teaching and learning system. Because in this case, we try to have students to be is an active role and try to get everything from the point of students. Because when they are active, in this case, it's going to be that the whole process of teaching and learning is also will be cooperative, collaborative one. In this case, the student takes and gives more than, for example, we have student, teacher, or passive just time. That's why feedback is very important. Before going and continuing, let's first of all to try to know what is feedback, because feedback in different cultures, in different literature, it has different kinds of definitions, and one of them is it can be like a influence on learner. It can be like to show the result of some kinds of courses, and also it can be first of all just the influence of the learner, because through feedback we can find out more about the education, about the changes, about the course that we have taught them, and also to know how many percentage, for example, in this case, how many percent the learner has taken from the course. And also it makes the teachers learning visible, because when I give something and then maybe I will give a task, and through the task I try to get the result and then give also the feedback to my students. There can be the cooperation like a teacher student in this case, because while giving the feedback at the same time, not only the teacher checks, gives feedbacks, gives some kind of maybe a piece of advice to his student, but at the same time the student in many cases realizes or understands, for example, why he has got, for example, this mark, or why he has got this answer, or why the answer. Because in some cases we can have tests, for example, with multiple choice, when the student can just tick the one, or without knowing the answer, why his answer, for example, was wrong. But through the feedback, in this case, we know, for example, he can just know why his answer was the mistake or the wrong one, and why this answer, the second variant, can be the correct one. And also they can understand all the errors, all the mistakes, and also in some cases even do some kinds of find out new and new things or new areas in order to be able next time not to do the same mistake. And in this case, there is a very deep connection and relation between students and teachers, because especially when we are doing some kind of projects, or we are doing portfolios, in this case, this cooperation can be visible very well, because the teacher can give them a task, then try to have a cooperation with the student, do a teamwork, or in some cases collaborative, different kinds of tasks and assignments. And what is the result at the end of it? The students just get an opportunity to just to go and do the work correctly, or maybe there will be cooperation with the teacher and everything can be step by step done without any kind of mistakes. And what is feedback? It can be different kinds of just points of view, because I can just everything analyze, I can everything discuss from different points. The first case can be, for example, like information. It can be like a technique. In some cases, it can be, why not, maybe method or something that here they can just use it as a feedback. In many cases, feedback can give also information. I can have a test and maybe I don't understand what am I going to do. I don't know. And in this case, while through the feedback, I can find out more about it. And as you see, I have tried to, the whole process gives through different kinds of steps, starting from learning goals, going to about the performance, the evidence. In this case, in the first stage, we try to know what is the goal of our feedback, like, and as in information, because I can't, without having any kind of goal or purpose, just to give a feedback to my student. No, I have what is my purpose. If my purpose is, for example, to make clear, or in some cases to correct, or in some cases to explain my student that this one, I have to plan my feedback, having special just steps for it. And then also to know about the learner's performance. If it's a project, if it's a portfolio or something other, in this case, it's very important to know the learner's steps, and maybe there is some kinds of steps that they will need teachers' help. And also based on evidence of learning. What is important, I can't just take and say that I'm giving you feedback without, first of all, teaching them, and then without giving them tests or assignments, and etc. And also it can just come from teachers, from friends, from learners, from peers, because according to the type of feedback, it can be realized, it can be planned, and the outcomes also will be different due to different types of feedback. And in this case, also there is some kinds of changes in teachers and students' behavior, because if we have feedback, if we give, first of all, the teachers try to behave like a teacher, and at the same time, like if it's a project, she can be like a facilitator for the student. And from the point of learner, their behavior just change according to the feedback. Maybe I have such kind of behavior in this case, but after getting my feedback, I have to change something in my project or in my test. And from this point also, it's going to be changed. And in some cases, it can be said that it has different kinds of points, different kinds of views. And even in literature, teaching methodology literature, when we search or try to find out something about with feedback, we will see that there are different models, but in every case, if we just combine to have one general idea or goal, we will see that the main goal in this case is to see the progress of students. And the main idea of having feedback in many cases is going to be the idea that in this case, through feedback, we try to improve, we try to record the progress, and we try to change, to have some kinds of changes in our course, in our teaching style, in our, even the test and the assignment. And here I'm going to represent you two models which explain the principles of feedback. The first one is going to be the HETT and Timperley, and the second one is going to be Black and William. There is a difference between their just times, also starting from, as you see, Black and Williams from 1998, and updating later. Let's a little bit deeper go here and try to have a comparison of models. Because as you see, first of all, it's go, then we have tried to have an action, and after it to go to the result. And as you see, there is a deep just relation between goal and result, because if I have a goal, I try to make it to realize, and then, or it doesn't matter what kind of result I have got at the end of just achieving my goal, I have to compare my goal and the results. Are they available to each other? Are they adaptable to each other or not? And according to it, maybe there will be some kind of changes, or maybe this model will not work for me. And a little bit deeper, here the main questions that are represented in the model. For example, in HETT's model, we can see where am I going, how am I going, and where to next. And here we have where the learner is going, where the learner is right now, and how to get there. As you see, there is a definition, and also there is a little bit difference between them. because in this case, I can just say the first model is going to be a little bit teacher-centered, or if I discuss it and analyze it from the point of student, it can be just only centered on the student or only centered on the teacher. What refers to the second model, it's going to be like we try as teachers try to analyze, to discuss everything from the point of student. Where is going he, for example, where is now, where is he going, and also how to get. If you go and analyze, you will see it's the same as our 3 steps, like goal, actions, result, because goal is the one that where the learner is right now. The action is the one where he is going, and for it, the action is the result is where the learner is is going, and the action is how to get there. Because through these 3 steps, it will be just available for the student and for the teacher to get a real, in many cases, beneficial feedback, not without any kind of purpose, because your feedback should be a purposeful one for all the people. And having it, it has a little bit different aspects, like giving good feedback. It can come and have 2 outcomes mainly. In the first case, it can just, we try to adapt, to make adaptive, effective teaching strategies in order to help our students to make some kind of progress in their learning process like a need. And also, on the other hand, if the teacher try to use and adapt from the other point, the students change what they do to address the learning goals more effectively. Because I can have one goal, for example, teach something students, and in this case, important to both sides, from the teachers and from the learners, to pay attention to, because from this side, teacher tries to use many different kinds of techniques or different kinds of methods or something to adapt these strategies to help them to make progress. And from the side of students, they try to change, they try to adapt, to make their own selves, and try to use all the techniques and methods that teacher usually gives to make them their own ones. And maybe it will be just negative result, has negative or positive. It depends on the cooperation between and the balance between them. It's very important to pay attention to different kinds of strategies for giving the feedback. And let's a little bit deep look them in detail. The first one will be just clarifying, sharing, and understanding the criteria for success, because in this case, it's very important to pay attention to the needs of our students. What do they really need? What am I going to do? Or what kind of techniques I can use in order to share, to clarify, to understand their intentions. Because if I understand the student and their intention, it will be easier for me, for example, to plan or to conduct something. And also about the feedback, it will be easier for me to give the feedback. The second one, engineering many classroom activities that elicit habits of learning. In this case, we have to do much practice in our teaching process in order to know, to find out how just our students have understood or have accepted something, or can they analyze, can they share something with us or not. And also providing and giving them feedback, it makes them move forward, because I can just stand here and after having my feedback, I'm just going without stopping, and I'm just continuing to go forward. And also at the same time, the progress has to be just going step by step, just increasing, not just decreasing in this case. And it's a very important one to activate students, as instructional resources for them. Students in many cases try to be activated using different kinds of resources, different kinds of just different kind of information or technique or something that will help them in this situation. And being as an is an active role, the student tries to be responsible for his own learning, for his own knowledge, for his own practical skills in different cases. In many cases, it can be, it can include really when we want to have a very good feedback, or we want to have, in some cases, a very purposeful one. We have to pay attention the whole points, the whole ornaments of our plan of feedback. First of all, as you see, we should have purpose, we should have focus, level, and outcome. And while having the purpose, what am I going to measure? What is the aim or what is the goal of my feedback, and what will it give me? For example, if I will have feedback, in some cases I can just, oh, it's okay if I just give just good luck, good job or something. But imagine and believe that many students like when the teachers, for example, give them, even if they give them through the smiles, through the different kinds of emojis, or just writing some very good words, well done, or awesome, or heads up, or something, like in order to motivate and to encourage our students. The next, after having the purpose for doing it, we have to focus. And in this case, it's important, as you see, the 3 steps according to one of our suggested models. Where am I going? How am I going? Where to next? And in this case, it's important one, because through the feedback, I should have a goal and also try and choose the techniques and methods that really will be available for me, and I can just use them in order to give just, for example, feedback, because maybe in some cases the students will just claim saying that the feedback is not obvious or is not the honest one. I don't believe because I have done this one. So that's why it's very important one, just having in every case, just having the stages about the focusing, and for it, just to pay attention to it and go for it. The level, in this case, we have like, it can be just provided at 1 or more 4 levels. For example, the learning activity can be, how can it be understood? The process of learning, it can be what they have to do to perform or to do the test. And also students' management of their learning, planning, and self-monitoring, and the student as an individual, personal quality shown by the student. Because as you see, these 4 levels are very important ones, starting from just setting up a goal and how to process it, what kind of outcome we are going to have, because in each stage it gives really a very good and beneficial outcome at the end of it, if we just follow all of them. And as an outcome, it can be process, it can be changes, it can be we should just do everything in order to make my or even my teaching process more and more effective one. And the outcome, it will just include not only the result of the task or the progress or something, but also it will give me really a very good example or a very good chance in order to collect, in order to have all of them and to compare and to change or to use new strategies in this case. Now, a little bit about the role of teacher, because teachers teaching and giving the feedback. In some cases, they try to change. They try to be just and give everything them, but at the same time, they are going to be engaged in feedback practices every day. I can, being as a teacher, I can just give a feedback even while checking the homework. I can give the feedback after explaining, for example, a rule of grammar, or even while the students are doing any kind of test and the teacher is moderating, facilitating them. It also can be a feedback, a type of feedback. And in this case, it's very important because the teacher should be in different roles on different stages of the lesson. In each stage, she's going to be like productive one, and to get as more as they can more and more benefits from it. Now, it also can give the ability to help students. For example, I can give a task, the student can see the problem but not knowing how to solve it, or in some cases maybe the student can't find the solution or the problem or of the issue and try to think of some kind of alternative ways for it. And also it's really a very good opportunity for teachers to know about the failures, maybe in some cases about the misunderstandings or mistakes that the student has done, and help him to solve these problems and help him to plan, or just to give a piece of advice in order to be able to realize their idea or dream or something. And feedback, besides being from teachers, it can be like a peer feedback and self-assessment tool, because during the self-assessment, the students are very important in this case to work to have a cooperative one. And while giving feedback, students doing different kinds of tests, I can give our students a test, and this test will help me, for example, to make some kind of changes, or to even the students who are passive, I can make them, for example, be more and more active during the lesson through peer assessment or self-assessment. What refers to the self-assessment and peer assessment, they really are very good ones, because through peer assessment, there is a teamwork, there is a collaboration, and there is a cooperation between students, and they even can see each other's mistakes, and even in some cases can give the solutions. What goes to self-assessment, this is another point, through self-assessment and through giving back feedback to you yourself, in order to find out what you know about, for example, this topic really, and what you can do through it. It can be, and also in this case, as you see in the active role, the students are in the active role, and during the peer assessment and during the self-assessment, they can just get involved in the process of learning and doing different kinds of projects or some kinds of work that can be involved, and at the same time be active during the whole. And why not doing a teamwork? In this case, I can give, for example, you, Adam, you have such kind of, let's do this one, or let's change this one in order to get such kind of result, or in some cases, in order to score highly, we can just pay attention to the all statements or something that the teacher usually gives, or their peers gives them at the end of the test or assignment. In many cases, the feedback, the quality of feedback can be critical, because I can think that really feedback is a very good one, because it can help me, but on the other hand, we can say that all feedback, it can give students not to be confident with their skills or with their not knowing much about it. And from this point, it's very important to just to follow some kind of points for it. First of all, for example, teachers communicating clear learning goals, understanding which strategies can help the learning, or use feedback to stimulate improved learning, and also at the same time the contribution of the student to the engagement and self-regulation, because through feedback the student not only is engaged in the process, but at the same time it's going to be like self-regulation. I can know, oh, this one I don't know, and I can do something in order to improve my skills, or in order to be able to give feedback my students to change them. And also all these changes take time and careful planning. I can't just take and do it. No, I can plan. If I have a self-assessment, I can just get ready some kind of questions, and the students can just watch, and the students can just answer the question, and if they try to give their feedback. Okay, that's why it's very important one. For example, when you have a feedback, when you are going to give the feedback, in this case, pay attention what you are going to give, what kind of feedback you are going to give. To pay attention to your goal, to your actions, and to your result. And don't forget at the end just to compare your goals and results. And because the middle part, you can't jump from your goal into the result to your result. You have the middle part action. And this part is very important one, because imagine a situation you are going to make a cake, you have all the ingredients for it, and you want to get the cake that you have seen on the internet, but without just baking it, you can't get the same result for it. That's why always pay attention, and remember that students, they really pay attention to your feedback, and if your feedback is the right one, they will follow some kinds of changes in their work. That's why always pay attention to it and give the right feedback for that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alice. So now let's open the floor to questions and answers. So please, dear audience, use the chat box in Zoom and comment box on Facebook to ask your questions. We'll be forwarding those questions to our speaker. Thank you so much. Okay, so the first question, Alice, to you: what can we do be sure that the peer feedback is appropriate?
Okay, in this case, as you know, during my presentation, I talk about the role of teacher being as a facilitator and moderator, because I can give a test to my students, and in order to have the feedback, I can ask to compare their works, for example, with their peers. And for in this case, it's important to moderate and to see what kind of feedback they are giving. If, for example, Anis or Nasiba is my friend, I can say, oh, she's my best friend. I can't say negative points, negative feedback. In this case, it's not the honest one, because in this case, I can just say, oh, she's my friend. And in this case, I have only positive points without paying attention to the negative one. Sorry, Nasiba, for just choosing you and giving the example between you and me. And in this case, it's very important to pay attention to explain the students that the peer feedback is going to be realized in order to find out as a real, for example, barriers or negative points, or in some cases, even to know that what can be done in order to just to change something. If it's a project, for example, I can have slides, but there is something I don't like, I can ask my friend to give or to compare them in order to give my peers feedback. Maybe the color or maybe this one is not a good one and I can change. That's why it's important, one, to be sure that the peer feedback will be just not to answer between the peers, between the friends, but from a little bit from the scientific and a little bit from official point to be, because you are students going to assess your friend's work. Please be just and honest and give the real reasons, because we have to help our friend to improve, for example, his presentation, not to assess, but try to give some kind of a piece of advice then. At this point, I think it will be a really useful one for them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have next question coming from our participants. So Firuz is asking, is it important to give feedback for each student when the lesson is over?
It depends on how many students do you have. For example, I have classes where I have 36 students. And in this case, we can I won't be able to give separate feedback for each student, but during the whole, at the end of the class, for example, I always do some kind of summing up or wrapping up my session. For example, students, let's remember what was our topic, or for example, what if I have explained some kind of grammar rules. In this case, I can ask, what was it? What does it mean? Or even if I have a text or a story, I can wrap through the questions. And for example, the student, or, oh, today you have been, for example, very brave because you were the first one who answered my question, or the one who just described, or, and for example, you were very good today because you gave us detailed description, for example, of our heroine. Yes, you can, if you have time, not, for example, 10 minutes, because the wrapping part of the lesson is going to be the last 5-7 minutes, not more, because if you use 10 and more minutes to wrap up your lesson, your students will get bored again. Every time the same one. But why not in some cases, or in many cases, when I give some kind of test to my students, and at the end of the session, I say, oh, please open your copybooks. I will go through the rows and I will look through all this again. And in many cases, if I manage, I just try to draw a smile in order to show that really I am very pleased with you. And or in some cases, even I just draw some kinds of stars or something, or a heart, or I say, or I can just say, oh, very good one, or something, in order just to praise the student, that really they will get some kind of just response or feedback from me that they were the greatest one. Or even something I can remind, oh, for example, Adam, yesterday you were, last lesson, do you remember you just told me about this one? Let's a little bit revise or something. Did you remember that it is connected with our today's lesson or something? Just, you can just name, if you have time and your group is small one, why not? You can praise everyone, just try to give some kind of feedback, because even the test, even the essay, even the compositions, they want to know what was good. Or in some cases, for example, the essay, I remember one of the essay was about the traveling, and one of my students said, oh, I want to go this country because the cuisine is, and I wrote like a feedback, I would like to travel with you because I like this country's, for example, cuisine too. And really, he was very pleased. Oh, I'm going to do or something. That's, you can just give it. Why not?
Yeah. Thank you so much. So next question, how often should teachers provide general performance feedback to students?
It depends on the topic, and it depends on also the chapter, because if you give, for example, if it can be a summative or formative, for example, assessment, according to you can decide, I can finish or I can complete this chapter, and according to it, I can just give them feedback. Or if my topic, for example, is the means of transportation, transport, and I can just divide my whole class into groups, give a project work, and after the presentation, I can just give them the whole, the general, for example, performance feedback. The first group was, for example, good at this one. Second group, I will advise you to do this one, or I can even ask the groups to give their feedbacks for each other too. That's why it depends on the topic, it depends on the chapter, and also your goal. What is your purpose of giving I can't every time, for example, maybe give the general performance feedback to my students, but if I have my aim is or my purpose is, for example, to check, to see the progress or to see how well my students have understood, for example, present continuous tense. In this case, why not give them or give a special test through it? You can just get the general information about the progress of your students.
Yeah, great, thank you. So Natsa is asking, should we give the feedback right on the spot or after some time? How effective it really is? Do the students really pay that much attention to feedback than we teachers do?
And in this case, what is important? You as teacher can give a feedback, but forget about this feedback that you have given or you have just told your student that you have such kind of point. It will be better if you, for example, improve this skill or pay attention to your mistakes or something. And then you as teacher forget about it, and even without paying attention to the progress of the student, but the student is working, and every time she wants to show, oh, look here, teacher, I'm working. It's also a very important one in this case, because you can give feedback, but without any facilitating or in some cases paying attention to the progress of have they followed to your feedback or not. If you give, for example, you teach at the primary school where it's very important to write very beautifully, for example, the letters, and you see, oh, I see if you write, for example, look, last time your letters were so beautifully, or your letters are this time, and try to compare. In this case, the student also just thinks that you as teacher pay attention to the feedback and you follow, and in some cases you control how the student is going to follow your advice or do some kinds of changes. It's, I think, cooperative work between teacher and student.
Yeah, wonderful. So next question, how can we add some metacognitive principles in the elaboration of tests?
Yes, it's very important, because 21st century is recognized, maybe is famous for developing critical thinking and also at the same time metacognitive principle in this case, because the feedback that you are going to do or something that you are going to add to your test, not to have, for example, in some cases only the multiple choice or short answers or long answers in order to, but you can just think of some kinds of tests that will help your students to think, to analyze, and try to find the solution themselves. You can just give a hint, like something that this today, for example, the weather is very good one, and you are going to be from, there is a very good method for corners, when there are 4 different corners as of the room, and for each corner is responsible for one thing. For example, one corner student can be responsible for giving the information. The second one can give the negative points. The third one can give, for example, the positive points. And the fourth one is going to give you new information. In this case also, if you want to do some kinds of metacognitive principles in your test, it's important to have a real appropriate tasks for it. A real something that will be appropriate not for your students, their knowledge, their level, and how they can just solve, how they can collaborate with each other and to solve this one. And it's important in this case very to develop and to make them think that they are not afraid of telling, sharing their opinions. And in this case, it will be okay. But if we just give the just a general task, and okay, this is the rule, you can't go out of the borders, it really will be just difficult for them. That's why just try to think of, first of all, the tasks and give them freedom of expressing their ideas and thoughts on this topic, on that topic that they are going to learn or to just observe or something.
Okay, thank you. So next question, do you have experience of using technology to give feedback?
Yeah, in many online, for example, during online lessons, when they are just giving me or sending me some kinds of essay or something, I try to, first of all, to read very carefully, giving not only the mistakes, but at the same time, in some cases, I can just give, for example, if it's an official or literate academic essay, I can, it will be appropriate, for example, to use this one, or even just to follow the structure of the essay, I can just give, please look here, I am sending you the vocabulary for it, special for writing essay. Please try to use these words, try to learn them and to make them do and through it. Or giving the feedback, I can use different kinds of rubrics. I can use praising or emojis, or in some cases, I can just even put some kind of small pictures in the middle of their work, just trying to praise them, or during the online lessons, I can just choose the real moving emojis in order to just praise the students that they are right, or just give the thumbs up, or the vice versa, in order to, or through the body language and face expressions, they can sometimes they guess if they are right or not. It's also, yes, why not? Technology is something that really makes easier and easier our work.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Can the feedback influence the marks? What do you think?
From what point? From the point of students or from the point of?
I guess from both points.
Yes. From the points of teacher, you can give the mark and explain, let's say, prove your students that why have you given this mark, because of these points. From the point of student, in many cases, the students, when they get marks, they are afraid of telling the teacher why. Because they think that if they ask some questions, maybe it will be the vice versa, the mark will just score poorly in this case. But I think your feedback should be connected with your mark, because you can't mark, you can't assess your student without purpose. It should be purposeful, because you should have the right answers for each question. This is this because look, or if you, for example, use a rubric for assessing, look here, a rubric shows me that you can get 5 points in this case if your grammar is this one, or if your punctuation, or if your, for example, vocabulary or cohesion is this one. You can just ask them to do. In many cases, you can give the rubric your student, if you have composition or essay or a paragraph writing test, you can give the rubrics beforehand your student in order just to make sure then that they get acquainted with the rubric and its requirements. In which cases, for example, they can get 5, they can get, for example, from 5 to 3 points, and knowing all the requirements, they also try to follow the structure and getting like a general, the total mark. In this case, it will, it's obvious in this case, for example, that really they have got this mark because according to the rubrics, they have such kind of mistakes, but in this case, they have done. I remember there is a very good method. It is called green pen method. If I'm not mistaken, the author is right from Russia, if I'm not mistaken. She was a primary school teacher who started checking with green, and every time, for example, the majority teachers, when we check, we try to underline the mistakes. Yes, she has been giving like dictations, and while checking, she was underlining the right answers in order to praise the students that, look, you have 10 mistakes, but look here, you have 20 right, correct answers in order to praise. It also depends on how you are going to just give feedback or how you are going. But I think it's on the same level, and you have just to agree. There should be an agreement between the mark and your feedback.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing. So next question, what is the best approach to take when delivering critical feedback?
It goes to the collaborative learning with the students and teachers, because if you want to develop critical thinking, there should be, not to say in some cases, equal level between the teachers and students, and freedom, first of all, to give them freedom to share their thoughts and ideas, not to be afraid of to share them, because I can have a problem, and as a teacher I can have my own thought or my own approach on it, which will be, for example, my students, they don't agree with me because they say, you are from 20th century, we are from the 21st century, and there is a difference between the thinking of us. In this case, I think the collaborative and also cooperative learning will be the best solution for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. That's very, very interesting. Hearing different opinions and also questions. So we have a question from Fernando. He's asking, when we talk about feedback, we usually refer to teachers' feedback on the students. How important is feedback from the students?
First of all, it's very important for teachers, because if I will enter the classroom, I will speak without getting any kind of feedback from my students. It will mean like a monologue for me, that I have entered the classroom, I have spoken, and then I have gone out. In this case, it's also, first of all, it's necessary to get the feedback from the students in order to make some kinds of changes. Many years ago, I remember when I started giving lectures to my students, on the first lesson, I was so nervous that I was speaking so quick, and one of my students wrote on a small just paper, just please, and put on my table, please, a little bit, speak slowly, because we want to catch what you are just telling us. I think in this case, I tried to work myself in order not to speak so quick, in order to make understandable for my students, because this I haven't noticed. I thought that my time is a very good one and I can just continue, but from this feedback also, or in some cases I can have a presentation or explain them something, and they say, what about if we try from this point, what will you say? Or I can tell about something, and they say, oh, we have read in this I don't know, newspaper, that this information is going to be this one. And I say, oh, I haven't known, I will check or something. It's also a very good one, because you see not only, as I have talked about, the pure feedback, here also I will see everything, every kind of discussion, or even in some cases mistakes or errors from the point of students, because in this case I will understand their needs better, because I will know what they are interested in, how they usually want to get the information or knowledge from me. It's important one, because if you assess your students will assess you too. They have to assess you too.
Yeah, thank you so much, dear Alice. And yeah, I would like also to ask the question about feedback. So how do you think, like, in some cases, teachers, like, unintentionally use some kind of really harsh feedback that it becomes like a destructive one. So what do you think? So should the feedback be more really inspirational and also just, giving, real feedback and kind of, being constructive, or, to some extent, it should be also like a little bit severe. What do you think?
Yeah, it's important that if we take into account the personality of students, from this point, it can make students be more motivated, or vice versa, be more disappointed from this point. As for me, for example, when I get very strict feedback from my supervisor or from someone who is, for example, a good profession specialist in his field, it motivates me because I try to do my best in order to get more information and also try to improve myself. From the point of teacher, I can just divide it into two parts. The teacher who wants to be just and who wants to be too strict through student. And from the second point, teacher, if students, for example, knows that he's a specialist who likes to give a detailed feedback, it will really motivate the students. But if the student knows that he has done everything, for example, but vice versa, he has got not the best feedback, I would just say that if you get the strict feedback, I would like that in this case, the professor who is giving you this kind of strict feedback will give you the second try in order to change your work according to their feedback, and again submit in order to see if he has understood all the points and if everything is okay now. From this point, why not give it?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Alice. Like, it was really great, to have this webinar and also to discuss around giving feedback, because nowadays we understand that, like, giving feedback is getting really, really important in teaching. So we had really nice feedback from you, and also just, good responses to the questions. And dear participants, thank you for joining the webinar and actively engaging in the question and answer session. So we have also one of English with Albora's active webinar participants, Fernando, and he generously shares all the links and resources so the teachers can benefit from them. Thank you, Fernando, as well. Dr. Alice, once again, huge thank you for being a speaker at English with Albora's webinars. We really appreciate your time, and of course, your knowledge and experience. And dear participants, thank you once again for joining English with Albora's webinars. And we look forward to more webinars with you, Dr. Alesa Durgaryan. And of course, dear participants, we are going to meet with you in a week. So please stay tuned on us and follow us on social media pages. Dear all, have a great evening. See you next Thursday. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye. See you soon.
Bye-bye.